has given it the machine number of 0, and I want to put Kubernetes master on that node. So that's how you do that. How to get rid of the load balancer component from the cluster setup. Okay, are you talking about the built-in Kube API load balancer that's part of the bundle by default?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So same way. If you want to modify the components, just download the bundle, and you could just delete that, and then delete any relations in here.
Got it.
And then deploy the bundle file. That would work just fine. Incidentally, the Kubernetes core bundle, which we did not deploy, is
that doesn't have the load balancer.
Right. So if you want to super trim down, this only uses 2 machines, and it doesn't include the API load balancer, so that you could. That's a good option also for local deployments or testing.
Yeah.
How to add another machine as a node in case of a local host deployment. So Juju add machine, created machine 13. That's how?
No, so it's like if I have another VM and that I want to add to my Kubernetes cluster as an additional node, how can I do that?
I see. Yeah, so in that case, I don't remember the exact syntax, but if you say Juju add machine minus help, let me make this bigger, and we'll pipe it to less just in case. So you can do it. If you basically read this help documentation and what it says, you can see up here, one of the options you have is to tell it basically a user and host name or IP address. So I think there's, yeah, here's an example.
Okay. So if I add another machine through that particular command, and the next time I deploy or I scale one of my pods on my Kubernetes cluster, will it be like automatically scaling, including the new host that I added?
So when you add the machine, it will add the machine, but it won't put any software on it. So what you would want to do after you added the machine is you would want to do Juju add unit, and let me just, I want to verify, oops.
Okay, so I'll have to do an add unit to that particular model that I have deployed, right? As a,
you would do exactly this. Juju add unit, and then whatever component you want to put on that machine, and then you just tell it, hey, I want you to put it on that machine.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Great question. Okay, how to add another machine? As a local host test dev install, can I simulate nodes using LexD? Can I simulate nodes? I'm not sure I understand this one. The LexC containers are the nodes, so I'm not sure if anybody, whoever asked this, wants to chime in here.
Same question as before. It's okay.
Okay.
I understand it.
Okay. Okay, great. Juju config to update the version of etcd final, etc.? Not yet. So this is, again, back to what a charm actually it is. It's a bunch of code in a directory that Juju knows how to run at the right time. So in order to support upgrades, for example, you have to program the charm to know how to do an upgrade. So in the case, etcd is a really good example. By default, I don't know if anyone noticed, but we deploy etcd 2.3.8 still. Etcd 3 is out. So on our roadmap, we have to provide an upgrade path from etcd 2 to 3. So eventually what will happen is one day you'll deploy CDK, and by default, a new cluster would get etcd 3, but then we would update the charms so that an existing cluster with etcd 2 could have an automatic upgrade path. So the short answer is not yet, but it's in the works. Also, if you want to know what you can do with a particular component, what you can do is, again, back to jujucharms.com, just search for the component you're interested in, and this page will include all the configuration. At the bottom of all of these README pages for the individual charms, you'll have a list of configuration options that you can set for that thing. Now that I've said all that, I'm eating my words because it says right here that I can set the snap channel TV, which means that just like we did with setting the channel to 1.8 edge, you can change this to whatever you want. We just won't deploy it as our default until we have tested it and tested the upgrade path from 2 to 3. So speaking of that, I wonder what happened with our, oh, looky there. So this is our cluster that we went full cowboy on and upgraded the master to 1.8 beta, and it seems to be I'm sure most of you guys know that the 1.8 release is just around the corner. So we have started testing 1.8 of CDK, but I mean, as you can see, we haven't put snaps in stable yet. But I think with 1.7, we released Canonical Distribution of Kubernetes 1 week after the upstream project. So hopefully we can, when 1.8 comes out, we'll probably be around that same time frame with our release as well. Okay, what else? Any more questions? Can it work with VMware ESXi or only with vSphere? You know, I'm not really sure. I'm not the VMware guy. I know we have specific integrations in ConjureUp for vSphere specifically. I think you can probably deploy to ESXi, but you won't have the special integration at this point. I'm not really sure. We have a number of field engineers who deploy VMware-based clusters quite a bit for enterprise customers. They would know more about that, but unfortunately, I'm not sure the answer to that. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I guess that answers that question. I actually was, I wanted to show, since you asked about that, I've got a blog post relevant to that. I think it's this one. that might be interesting. Yeah, so this was a blog post we did right after we released the AWS native integration stuff, and at the same time we did some vSphere integration work. So if you were to conjure up and pick vSphere as your cloud, then you have some integrations here where you can choose your primary and external network and default data store. So give that a shot, definitely, if you're on VMware. Okay, that's all the questions in there. Did I miss anything? Anything new? I think we're wrapping up, but I want to say, let me paste this link. That's not what I wanted. I'll give you guys a link to these slides so you can look at these later if you want to jog your memory. That's got, if you want to know more about our other Kubernetes offerings, you can click through to ubuntu.com/Kubernetes. At the top of the slide deck is my Twitter handle. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm in most of the Kubernetes Slack channels. So at least Kubernetes users and Kubernetes novice, I'm in there. I'm not in there right this second because I didn't want to get interrupted during this talk, but I'm in there all the time. So feel free. It's T Van Steenburgh on Slack. I'll just add and there. So now you know how to reach me. If you guys want to reach out, get in touch. If you have questions, if you run into problems, bugs, would love to hear from you to make our product better for sure. So I don't know. I don't think there are any more questions, but I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for giving me your time. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. Great session with you. Learned a lot myself. And one last question. Do you have any recommendation for us for the CKA candidates? How they could prepare with the different clusters, which the 8 clusters, which is provided during the exam? Is there any way to build the clusters on our own?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Here's all I can tell you is using CDK to deploy to LXD, you could deploy 8 different LXD clusters on either your own machine or on an Amazon EC2 instance. So you could set up a bunch of clusters on one machine to test on. What I cannot tell you, because I actually don't know, is how each of those clusters in the exam is configured for the troubleshooting scenarios. That's secret. I don't know that. The guy that worked on helping the Linux Foundation set up the infrastructure from our team didn't know that either. In fact, the guy who helped with the exam said, he was one of the guys who said, man, that was really hard. So I don't have any insight into the scenarios that are set up on those clusters. The only thing I can help you with is actually deploying multiple clusters to work on, to prepare. So sorry, that might not be exactly what you were looking for, but that's all I know, actually.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. I think there is no questions. We spent 1.5 hours together with you. It was very, very great. Thanks again, Tim. for your great presentation and a lot of information. We learned a lot from you and hope to have you again in the future by some other meetups. So
that would be great. Yep, my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, and have a nice evening altogether.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye-bye. So I'll stop the recording and hope we get the whole recording after that.